Hello and welcome to this Dot Connector videocast for subscribers to davidicke.com. Well, there's two ways of looking at the world and world events. One is that they're all random and happening in and of themselves purely by chance. And there's the other, which I would actually recommend after 30 years of researching all this, that actually major world events are not random at all, but part of a sequence leading the world in a certain direction. And when you connect dots, rather than see dots as in and of themselves, you can connect some apparently unconnectable things and events. For instance, what is happening now in North Korea can be connected to 9/11. Because both are part of a sequence, again, leading the world in a certain direction, a direction of tyranny, Orwellian centralization of power and control, and all the other things that I've written and talked about for so long. And you realize that these events that kind of appear to come out of nowhere, right on cue, by the way, are not random at all, but they're part of a script. And so let's take it back from what is happening now in North Korea. And we can go back to September 2000, when a group known as the neocons or neoconservatives in the United States produced a document through an organization called the Project for the New American Century, which listed a series of countries they wanted to regime change using the American military to fight multiple theater wars, as they put it. These neocons in this organization included people like Dick Cheney, who a few months later would be vice president, actually president in truth, under Bush. Donald Rumsfeld, who would become the Secretary of State for Defense, the Pentagon. His deputy, the real power, Paul Wolfowitz. Dov Zakheim, who would control, a few months later, the entire Pentagon budget. And the countries they named that they wanted to regime change included Iraq, Libya, Syria, Iran, Lebanon, North Korea, leading to regime change in China. Now, as I've been pointing out for such a long time, there is a hidden hand, and although presidents and prime ministers and governments of different parties come and go, this hidden hand is pushing on its agenda, whichever. And we can see this very clearly in this sequence. First of all, the document by the Project for the New American Century in September 2000 said that this process of transformation that they talked about, in other words, all these regime changes, would be slow, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. 1 year to the month after that document was published, 9 months after the people that were behind it came to power in the Bush administration, America had what Boy George Bush called at the time the Pearl Harbor of the 21st century. So we're off. They had their excuse to start picking off these countries. So they go into Afghanistan first on the lie that Osama bin Laden had orchestrated 9/11. And then we go to Iraq. Now, Iraq was the abomination that was justified by blatant lies by the American government of George Bush and the British government of Tony Blair. And by the way, the lies that were told about weapons of mass destruction simply to provide an excuse to start ticking off this list were given to us by the very same people that told us the official story of 9/11. The nonsensical, nothing fits to anything else story of 9/11, where we are in the process of passing the 16th anniversary, and still the mainstream media has done no investigation into that whatsoever that even closely associates themselves with the term journalism. So we have Bush and we have Blair. Bush was a Republican, Blair was Labour Party in Britain. But then, by the time they go to the next one on the list, which was Libya, again, justified by lies, we had a Democrat in the White House, Barack Obama. We had a Conservative Party leader in Downing Street, in David Cameron. So we've got different people in different political parties, but the same list is being ticked off. Then the same pair kick off or front up the kicking off, they're just puppets, of the People's Revolution in Syria, which was basically a rerun of what happened in Libya. Arming, funding, training rebels to target the person and the regime you want to bring down. And so we then come to Donald Trump. Oh, anti-establishment Donald Trump. Oh, he's not like the others. Yes, he is. And Trump has been brought in for a number of reasons. One is to cause chaos. Two is to cause massive divisions in America, being the symbol of them. And to carry on the list. So since he came to power, at least in theory, in the White House, the rhetoric has turned to North Korea and it's turned to Iran. Just happened to be a continuation of the same list from September 2000. And we have, therefore, two man-children in Kim Jong-un in North Korea and with Donald Trump, hurling abuse at each other and threats. My dad's bigger than your dad. No, mine is. Honestly, there's 7.5 billion people in the world. And the people that get into positions of power are overwhelmingly childlike and childlike psychopaths. Do you think that might be a coincidence or maybe orchestrated? So this is what Trump has been saying and threatening North Korea with. Fire and fury, the like of which the world has never seen. My dad's bigger than your dad. But it's not Trump. It's probably not even Kim Jong-un that is calling the shots here. They maybe appear to in the movie, but behind the scenes, very different forces are at work. And for me, far more significant than frontman Trump is the Secretary of Defense at the Pentagon, who has the nickname Mad Dog. Probably because he is. James Mattis. We have a psychopath in charge of the American military. Doesn't bode well, really. Some of his quotes. I come in peace. I didn't bring artillery, but I'm pleading with you with tears in my eyes. If you fuck with me, I'll kill you all. Find the enemy that wants to end this experiment in American democracy. Yeah, I threw that in for a bit of light relief. And kill every one of them until they're so sick of the killing that they leave us and our freedoms intact. Be polite, be professional, but have a plan to kill everybody you meet. So it's a hell of a lot of fun to shoot them. Actually, it's quite fun to fight them. You know, it's a hell of a hoot. It's fun to shoot some people. I'll be right up there with you. I like brawling. I'm going to plead with you. Do not cross us. Because if you do, the survivors will write about what we do here for 10,000 years. If anyone is suffering from little dick syndrome, it's James Mattis. He's also suffering from psychopath syndrome. In charge of the American military. And also advising Trump is Henry Kissinger, another lifelong psychopath and war criminal. And somehow Kissinger, who is said to be a Republican, ends up advising Boy George Bush, Republican, yeah, but also Barack Obama, Democrat, and now Trump. Another coincidence? Of course it is. So we have a situation where psychopaths running the US military and the British military and NATO are presenting themselves as trying to maintain peace in the world and trying to stop evil dictators. We must stop them. Well, that's not really been my observation all my life. My observation has been that the American military, in league with Britain and NATO, is a global killing machine of historic proportions. And the world will only be truly safe when it is behind bars in some form and the key thrown mid-Atlantic. Because the real driver of global war, of global death and destruction, is the United States in league with NATO and Britain. They couldn't give a damn about the people they claim to be protecting. Oh, yeah, he's killing his own people, Gaddafi. We've got to protect the people from violence by bombing them from the frickin' air. This is a report this week. US-led coalition violated international law in Syria by failing to protect civilians. This is a UN report. The UN Syria Commission released a report saying it was gravely concerned about the impact of international airstrikes in the war-torn country, adding that US-led forces failed to take proper precautions to protect civilians during an attack in Aleppo. They go on to make the same point about Raqqa, and you could go on and make the same point again and again in country after country after country throughout the entire history of the United States, which is a government, no matter what complexion of the governing party. It's a government that is founded on war, founded on violence, and continues to be so while condemning everyone else for their violence. And if we go back to North Korea, I've got no brief for this man-child that's officially running the country, or for some of the things that he's doing. But people have to look at why North Korea is so concerned about the United States. For a start, anyone that knows about the project for the New American Century and its list and is seeing it ticked off will have noted that North Korea is on it. And then there's the history that the United States have with Korea, going back to the Korean War in the 1950s, another mass orgy of American violence. This is a quote from General Curtis LeMay, who coordinated the bombing campaign against North Korea between 1950 and 1953. This is what he said. We killed off, 20% of the population. We burned down every town in North Korea. About 1.55 million civilians were killed. But North Korea is always the villain and not the greatest killing machine in known human history. And like I say, if you are in Korea and you're looking at what happened to Iraq and Libya and Syria, then you would be understandably very, very concerned about the continual build-up of military and naval forces around the Korean Peninsula and all the rhetoric coming out of America. Because you know who they're going to go for next, because the rhetoric builds up. You have to demonize the target so people think it's okay to go and blow the crap out of them. And so we have all this build-up of military and naval forces that obviously North Korea are going to see as a threat. But it's not really about North Korea, you see, because on that list from the Project for the New American Century was also China. And that's what this is really about. North Korea is the means to trigger conflict with China, which I've been saying was the plan since the 1990s. World conflict with the West pitched against Russia and China. Throw Iran in as well. And so while all this is going on and this script is being read, because that's what it is, North Korea, dangerous, nuclear weapons tests, dangerous, we must stop them. Meanwhile, one of the most trigger-happy regimes in the world, Israel, has a vast arsenal of nuclear weapons, which it doesn't even admit to having, though everyone knows they have them, and even has an official policy with the United States where Israel doesn't admit to having a vast nuclear arsenal and the United States agrees to never ask them. Why is it that there's one rule for Israel, country of 8 million people, and another for the rest of the world? It's a question that legitimately needs to be asked to find the answer to so much that goes on in this world. So, Colin Powell, the Secretary of State in the United States at the time of 9/11, in a leaked email to an associate of his, said that Israel has 200 nuclear missiles targeted on Iran. And yet, Iran is the danger. And Israel, this very week, has gone and bombed in Syria. It does what it bloody likes. Why? Why is it that Israel does what it likes? Imagine if Iran had done that in another country. They'd be talking about invading Israel. Oh, no, do what you like. Why is that? And why does anyone think that there is such hysteria surrounding anything to do with Israel, any criticism, any exposure of Israel? Hysteria that goes, he's an anti-Semite. It's to make sure that these questions, legitimate questions, are never asked because people are too intimidated. Oh, better not say that. They'll call me an anti-Semite. I don't give a shit. These questions need asking. Why does Israel have so much power? Why does it have nuclear weapons that no one ever talks about? When it's made very clear over and over again how much he thinks violence is a means to its ends. Then we have these same psychopaths in the United States arming the fascist psychopathic state of Saudi Arabia, one of the great centers of terrorist manipulation on behalf of the United States, one of the major creators with the United States and Britain of ISIS, and yet it's described as a key member of the anti-terrorist coalition. The world's not just mad, it's hysterical. And so you have people in South Korea now protesting over the placement of missile defense systems, America, in South Korea. And people think, well, they're missile defense systems, that's okay. No, it's not, in the sense of why they're there. As people like Putin have pointed out, if you have missile defense systems that can take out incoming missiles, then that gives you first strike option on the countries that don't have those defense systems. And when you see all the build-up of military and naval power and these defense systems right on the doorstep of China, the real reason is not North Korea, it's China. And the United States government, not least Trump, is now even using this manufactured crisis to sell more weapons on behalf of the people driving this in the background, on one level anyway. People like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and these so-called defense contractors that make staggering amounts of money out of killing people. And Trump has said this week, Japan and South Korea can buy substantially more sophisticated US military equipment. Oh, how kind of them. Donald Trump has announced he is selling Japan and South Korea a substantially increased amount of US military equipment. as the president and his allies look for ways to counter the threat of North Korea. Bollocks. It's driving the defense industry cabal, and it's following the script that's been unfolding in front of our eyes since 2000, but it goes back much further. So when China says that they propose to broker an agreement whereby North Korea stops its nuclear tests and its nonsense, and in return the US withdraws its military build-up in that area of the world, well, that's reasonable, isn't it? That's a good deal. But no, America says no. Oh, no, we're not doing that. Why? Because it's not in the script. This is what people have to understand. There is a script unfolding. These are not random events. The excuses are just that, excuses to justify the script, while trying to hide the fact that it is a script and promoting them as just random events. And so we have yet again the country that's being demonized, again in preparation for conflict, Russia, with Putin and the foreign ministry there, being the intelligent, balanced voice, trying this week to find agreement through diplomacy between North and South Korea and other parties. But the United States doesn't want it because it's following the script. And again, this week, we've seen it again. Nikki Haley, possibly one of the most vacuous US ambassadors to the United Nations ever, and my God, think of the competition, says Trump has grounds to declare Iran in violation of nuclear deal. US envoy to the UN warns if left unchecked, Iran will become the next North Korea. Oh, come on, here we go, it's on the list. Got to start demonizing it. US ambassador to the United Nations, it's hard to say that, but I must, because fortunately it's true. Nikki Haley said President Donald Trump would be justified if he denied Iranian compliance to the nuclear accord when it comes up for a quarterly review next month, though she said she does not know what Trump will decide. In a speech at the American Enterprise Institute, this is a neocon organization, just like the Project for the New American Century, Haley detailed a strong case for Trump to declare Iran in violation of the agreement, warning the United States will be dealing with the next North Korea if the regime is left unchecked. No, dealing with the next one on the list. So we have to find an excuse. And of course, a UN report this week, or recently, has said that actually Iran is complying with the nuclear agreement. But the script doesn't want that to be accepted because it needs an excuse to demonize someone else. And I think it is, I know it is, traveling around the world, dawning on more and more people that this is a script. This is a movie that they're watching unfold. And it's a horror movie. And the script, the words, are only there to justify the next scene in the movie. And that's what we're seeing now. And where they want it to lead is a third world war. Are we going to let them? Well, we better decide pretty bloody quick.